Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to note that we will be adding Resolution 2020-45 under new business, under the resolutions to the agenda items. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America. And
And
to the republic
for which it
for
stands,
which it
one
stands,
nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
indivisible,
justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Manager, roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Present.
Councilman Petrucci. Councilman Petrucci. Councilman Getzey.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sapp.
Present.
Councilman Pecora.
Present.
May I get a motion for the approval of the July 20th council meeting minutes?
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Deputy Mayor Sapp.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the July 20th council meeting.
May I get a second?
Second.
Any comment from council? I have one comment I would like to make. In the minutes, it makes reference to, the minutes make reference to me categorizing the contract for the chief as quote generous. I think that I would like to, that should be amended to say that I think it is burdensome. I think if you take a look at the minutes, I said that it is burdensome to the taxpayers to have that type of contract approved at that time. No other department head has a contract, and historically the chief has not had a contract. And I think those specific terms are more than generous, they are burdensome.
I can make that change reflected in the minutes.
Thank you, Manager. All in favor of the approval of the minutes then? Shall we do a roll call, Manager, or do you want to?
This is on the approval of the minutes. Councilman Petrucci. Councilman Getzey.
I didn't hear Councilman Petrucci.
I think Councilman Petrucci's having
Is his
difficulty.
speaker on? I can't hear John. I can't hear John. His lips are moving, but I don't hear anything.
There's something wrong with his audio. When he speaks, it's like it's in fast forward. It's like somebody fasted it.
But how did John? I don't think John's on.
He's on. He's on, but when he talks, it's like very fast.
I told Councilman Petrucci he may want to try to rejoin the meeting. Maybe there's something wrong with the microphone. He may want to try to leave and then rejoin.
Or he can just call in so that we can
Or you
continue
can
with
call
the
in.
vote.
Yep, that's the other option.
So Solicitor, I believe we have to wait till Councilman Petrucci gets back on so we can discuss these expenditures. Is that correct?
He's on right now.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Councilman Petrucci, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, and we hear you quite
So-
well too.
We were still at the vote on the approval of the minutes. Councilman Petrucci voted in the affirmative, and then Councilman Getzey, I did not get to record your vote yet.
I approve.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora. Yeah. Why don't you call into the meeting then? Why don't you call in? There's a toll-free number to call in. Yeah, I emailed it to you. Yeah, that's
I
it.
love technology when it works.
This is the first time we've had this glitch.
There's an access code, 679. Do you have it?
Jim, you can hear me now, right?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry about that. Councilman Pecora is having some difficulties. He's been calling into the meeting too. But I am going to record his vote in the affirmative for the approval of the minutes of July 20th. And then Mayor Calabrese, your vote on approval of the minutes, assuming that change is made that you requested.
Yes.
Scott, Manager Andrejchak,
Yes.
one thing I want to clarify before we change the minutes too. Chief Burton did have a contract years ago with us. And I believe you and I, we found that out from speaking to him not so long ago about that. There was a contract previous to the one he's got now.
I don't think there's a dispute about what happened in 2017, but I don't know that that's appropriate during the approval of the minutes, with all respect.
Well, you said there was no contract. There was a contract.
Well, historically, there was not a contract for the chief of police. That's what I said in the minutes. I'm
Before 17, there was a contract also.
just trying to clarify the minutes, Councilman. I'm not trying to, we can discuss that at a later section on the agenda if you would like. I just wanted to clarify what I said at the meeting.
Before we move on, I think Frank's on the line. Frank, are you there?
Yeah, I lost my internet connection at my house, unfortunately.
You're caller 5, Frank. Do you know how to rename yourself?
Pardon me, Greg?
I said you're caller 5. If you know how to rename yourself, you can change that to Frank Pecora, or we'll just know who you are.
You know who I am. That's fine.
May we move to the approval of expenditures, or are we still on the minutes? Manager, may we move on?
Yeah,
Oh, so you recorded everybody's vote then?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeking a motion of approval of the minutes. May I get a motion?
The expenditures, Mayor.
I'm sorry, approval of expenditures. Thank you. May I get a motion?
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Deputy Mayor Sapp.
I make a motion that we approve the expenditures.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci.
Yes.
Expenditures approved. We're now at the public comment period of the agenda. And there's been one individual that signed up in advance to speak about a non-agenda item. You will have 3 minutes once I call your name. And please, when you are called, if you could please just identify yourself for the record, spell your name. And then after the conclusion of that speaker, we'll also take any comment at that time on agenda matters. So Emily Goling. And I think you're unfortunately muted. Okay, there you go.
I should be unmuted now. My name is Emily Goling. That's E as in elephant, M as in Molly, I as in ice, L as in love, Y as in yo-yo. Goling, G as in girl, O as in olive, L as in love, I as in ice, N as in Nancy, G as in girl. I'm a resident of 210 Marshall Drive, Pittsburgh, PA 15235. Good evening, Mayor Calabrese and Penn Hills Council. I did email a copy of the transcript of what I will be reading tonight in case there was technical difficulties, and I knew it would have to be in 3 minutes. So if there is any problem, that should have come from Maureen this morning. My name is Emily Goling. Due to community outreach from a small group of dedicated citizens, the Allegheny Land Trust, also known as ALT, has attained a signed agreement of sale to purchase the former Churchill Valley Country Club land, which is over 148 acres of green space shared between Penn Hills and Churchill. For the last year and a half, ALT has been in the processes of applying for grants and requesting letters of support from elected officials. I am unaffiliated with the Allegheny Land Trust, but I have a real estate background and am a lifelong resident of the area. As a frequent recreational user of the property and promoter of green space, I am requesting a letter of support from the current council expressing their support of ALT's acquisition of the property. I founded the Facebook page Churchill Valley Country Club Land Preservation Effort in March of 2017 to gauge if there would be residential support for such a large endeavor. Support has been overwhelming, and there are currently over 600 followers of the page alone. I have spent the last 3 years learning about this specific property's geographical information, environmental attributes, surveys, maps, floodplains, watersheds, and speaking to managers, botanists, and environmentalists. Preservation of the land is important for several reasons. Unlike new development, green space does not require municipal services, and protected green space enhances surrounding property values up to 30%. Residential development on average costs more in public services than it generates in tax revenue, with a ratio of $1 in property tax revenue generated to $1.16 in public services required. Of the 148 acres, approximately 40 acres are on Penn Hills property, and of the 40 acres in Penn Hills, roughly 7 acres are developable land, which is located where the building once stood. The owner, Zocades Properties, is a well-known development company that specializes in upscale residential housing. After owning the property for over 6 years, they deemed it as non-profitable to develop, which is why it sits. Over 95,000 people live within a 3-mile radius of the property in an already well-developed suburbia. It is one of the few amenities within walking distance of hundreds of homes. There have been many studies done that substantiates the positive impact of proximity to green space has on residential property values. A fairly substantial compilation of widespread research was done on the topic in different cities across the nation. Well, that was compiled by Dr. Stephen Farber from the University of Pittsburgh. Regarding concerns for taxes, 2 grant requests totaling $1,788,788 have been submitted to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through 2 separate grant programs. It is extremely important that Western Pennsylvania taxpayers receive their fair share of these conservation and community building grants for use on projects here to make our communities better. Over the past 3 years, 86% of the Department of Conservation.
Remarks.
Sure. I'm requesting a letter of support from the current council expressing support of ALT's acquisition of the property. Please consider joining Churchill Borough, Forest Hills Borough, North Versailles Borough, Verona Borough, and Wilkins Township in writing a letter of support. And I hope you share the residents' enthusiasm for preserving this unique green space that was once a proud landmark for our communities.
Thank you so much. New business. Motion for the approval of resolution 2020-42.
I'll make a
Mayor
motion.
Calabrese,
Yes, Councilman Pecora.
make a motion to adopt approve resolution 2020-42, approving a budget amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Program budget for year 45 and CARES Act funding.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Sapp, Deputy Mayor Sapp on the approval of resolution 2020-42.
I need to get it together.
She might be
Scott?
having, yeah, hello?
Yes, I apologize. Can you please clarify that resolution?
This is a
And for anyone else,
resolution. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say before you say that, and for anyone else that's on the line, unfortunately, sometimes you run into glitches when you're dealing with computer science. So please bear with us and be patient. This is the first time we've had a glitch, and we do apologize. Okay, Scott, go ahead.
This is resolution 2020-42 approving a budget amendment for the CARES Act funding. I would defer to our planning director for more detail. Mr. Blackwell, if you could please provide Deputy Mayor with just a little more detail along with Mayor and Council so that they know more about this.
Yes, certainly I can. Basically, you're familiar with the $425,711 that we received in CARES Act funding from HUD. And it's an extension of the year 45 funding. So initially, we just put it into year 45. Afterwards, realizing that really we should have distinct different council account numbers ending in CV, and it'll assist the finance director, Sherry Strayer, in entering these account numbers, and we'll be able to track the funds in more appropriately. In addition, you'll notice that the funding was $425,711, and it's currently reduced in the budget amendment, and that's because we paid out one check to Western Penn Hills Community Action after council's approval, and so it's the $425,711 is reduced by $3,842.79, which was Western Penn Hills Community Action's first payment. Other than that, it's really just there's no movement of funds except to just have specific account numbers for those funds.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to clarify that difference in the amount. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Certainly, and I'll have to talk to Sherry afterwards because I'm sort of wondering if it maybe should have been the full $425,711 and then the payment of Western Penn Hills out of it. But my initial, that's actually the budget. So we'll talk about that with Sherry to better track that money, but that's the difference, yes.
Yeah, just as long as that's noted in that way, it'll be easier to track since we switched it. Thank you so much, Chris.
I apologize for not doing that in the first place. Thank you.
Were there any
Roll
other
call.
questions from, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry,
Roll
please go
call.
ahead.
Deputy Mayor Sapp on the question?
Yes. No, I don't have a question. It was answered. Thank you.
Councilman Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci?
Yes.
Councilman Getz?
Yes.
Okay, resolution 42 approved.
May I get a motion for the approval of resolution 2020-43?
Mayor
I make a-
Calabrese, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Sapp.
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2020-43, approving a minor budget amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Program budget for year 45.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Any public comment? Any comment from council? Roll call.
Councilman Pecora?
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese?
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci?
Yes.
Councilman Getz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp?
Yes.
Resolution 2020-43 approved.
Thank you. May I get a motion for the approval of resolution 2020-44?
Mayor Calabrese, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-44, approving the acquisition and disposition of vacant property located at Brushton Avenue, parcel number 173-L-209, in accordance with the Allegheny County Vacant Property Recovery Program and Penn Hills Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-44 is approved.
Motion for,
At this time, I did ask that the mayor entertain the introduction of Resolution 2020-45, which allows the municipality to execute a reimbursement agreement with PennDOT that deals with their Verona Road project.
elaborate.
Can I have a little clarification on this? Is this going from Toot and Scoot all the way up to the Giant Eagle on Frankstown? Is that this stretch of property?
There's PennDOT is engaged in two simultaneous landslide remediation projects. One is on Lime Hollow Road and the other is on Verona Road. On Lime Hollow Road, it doesn't appear that they're going to have to relocate our sewer line, but on Verona Road, it does. So what this allows PennDOT to do is reimburse the municipality 75% of the costs that are going to be associated with that relocation.
But this is a stretch of land that goes from Toot and Scoot all the way up to Giant Eagle on Frankstown, right?
On Verona Road, correct.
Right.
There is actually just one section of road. It's actually in the agreement.
Okay.
It's section A14. But in order for the municipality to have any of its costs reimbursed by PennDOT, they require a reimbursement agreement be in place for that.
When's this project starting, Scott?
It's going to start on, well, I mean, it's spelled out in the agreement as A14.
What date?
It's spelled out in the agreement as section A14. I mean, I could give you a general description that's on Verona Road. As to all the details of their project, I couldn't speak to it, Councilman.
Okay, that's fine. I know there's some landslides on on Verona Road. I just wondered when they were going to start fixing that one next.
I know that they've requested that we do the agreement by the end of the month, and I just got an email today about it. So I suspect once the agreements are in place and everything would probably start to move forward this summer, I would think.
Okay. Sounds good.
I can add a little bit to that, Scott, if you want me to.
Please do, Rick, if you may.
Yeah, so the idea is they're repairing the landslides along Verona Road, and as part of the repair, the sewer line is in the way. So the sewer line has to be relocated. So the design work has been going back and forth with Gateway, doing the design, laying out doing the survey, laying out the new sewer location, and preparing the drawings so that their contractor could install the new location of the sewer line so that they could install their landslide repair. And that work is scheduled to happen. I've been told as soon as Lime Hollow Road opens, they're going to close Verona Road within a week, a couple days to a week. They didn't want both roads closed at the same time. So that's why they had to finish Lime Hollow first. And when Lime Hollow opens, it'll be completely rehabilitated from a standpoint of their slide repairs. It'll have Penn Hills, a relocated sewer line, which had nothing to do with the slides. It happened to do with a grant to upsize your sewer line, which was overflowing as a result of its small diameter. That work has been completed, and the entire road will be paved from the top to the bottom. So Lime Hollow will be in very good shape compared to how it's used to have been. And then they're going to start on Verona to do the same thing, basically close the road. And in this case, we'll be relocating a sewer line because it conflicts with the location of the landslide repairs. And then I would expect, if it's similar to Lime Hollow, it will probably be closed for a couple months, and then it will be paved and reopened.
Thank you.
Welcome.
May I get a motion on resolution 2020-45 that was just explained?
Yeah, I'll make a motion on 2020-45. Resolution of the municipality of Penn Hills, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, approving a utility relocation reimbursement agreement number 119896 with PennDOT.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second, Mayor Calabrese.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilman Petrucci,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-45 approved.
May I get a motion for the approval of ordinance 2020-2671?
I'll make approval of ordinance 2020-2671, an ordinance of the municipality of Penn Hills, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, approving an intergovernmental agreement between the municipality of Penn Hills and the Pennsylvania Water Wastewater Agency Response Network and its member municipalities and authorities.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Any comment from the public? Any comment from council? Roll call.
Councilman Getzey,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sapp,
Yes.
Councilman Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilman Petrucci.
Yes.
Ordinance 2671 approved.
Any items for consideration?
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Deputy Mayor Sapp.
I'd like to make a suggestion for an item of consideration. I'd like to suggest that we would have an executive session between mayor and council at least twice a month, beginning next month in September. And that's it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. May I add to that suggestion? Rather than having two executive sessions, I would propose that we have the regular voting council meeting, and then we could have a public meeting where people could speak. And then if need be, we would call executive sessions. The reason being, for example, tonight, we have Ms. Galling come up here and she speaks, and it's almost as if she's talking to a brick wall, because this is, there's not a give and take, an exchange here. We also have, for example, there was in my mind, a very, very significant vote last month on the contract for the chief of police. I'm almost certain if the public had had the opportunity to speak beforehand, there would have been, frankly, I think, public outrage. I think not only was the contract unnecessary, but the terms, in my opinion, were really, burdensome and too much. So I intend to propose that we move to 2 meetings a month, 2 council meetings, so that they are public and not just an executive session, which is not public.
Are you going to have an executive session and two council meetings? Do I understand 3 meetings or 2 meetings?
What I would propose is that we have 2 public meetings, because I don't think the public is given an opportunity to participate enough. I would like to have input from the public and not a day where we simply have the opportunity to speak as they hear these resolutions and ordinances. We speak and that night we vote. So I propose that we have 2 meetings like we used to. Historically, there were 2. One of the meetings would be a voting meeting and one meeting can be with public input. Periodically, from time to time, it will be necessary to have executive session. For example, personnel matters are to be discussed behind closed doors. That doesn't get, the public is not invited to executive session. So I think that what we need to do is have 2 public meetings and then when necessary, have executive session.
I agree with what you said. The public doesn't have enough time at the meetings to express itself or discuss the situations or the agenda adequately. And I agree with what you said about having 2 meetings. So the executive session would be arbitrarily determined based on what needs to be discussed. Is that correct?
Thank you, first of all, Councilman Getzey. I don't know that I would use the word arbitrary. I would say as necessary.
Okay, you're right. As necessary.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to this whole conversation, okay? First of all,
May I note for the record, may I just note for the record that I recognize Councilman Petrucci? Go ahead, Councilman.
I'd like to add something to this. This council is built on 5 members, okay? There has to be a concession of at least 3 members to agree to anything on council. These items that we're bringing up need to be discussed in an executive session, and they need to be, 3 members must agree on what you're talking about, at least. So that's why I believe it's necessary for us to start having some executive meetings so these things can be brought up and we can iron them out. How many of us right now want to go back to a public meeting? I'll bet you there's 3 right now that say no. So these things must be talked about in an executive session. What Deputy Mayor Sapp is trying to do is get us in a room and communicate. Tell everybody, the 5 of us, what we want. That's the only way we're going to be successful is if we communicate. And we must do that in an executive session, and it must be consecutively that you have 3 people that vote on the same thing in concession.
With all due respect, I do not believe that it is appropriate. These are things that, according to the Sunshine Act, need to be done in public. I think there are limited items that are to be done and that are to be discussed in executive session. And if I might, I'd like to defer to the solicitor. Perhaps the solicitor can tell us what the limited items are to be discussed in executive session. But my understanding, and if I'm wrong, certainly I'll stand corrected. But we cannot just arbitrarily go into executive session on any items. Most items, the preference is that we discuss things publicly. The public should hear our discussions. The public should get the opportunity to have input. Now, I believe there are limited items that can be discussed in executive session. And if I could defer to the solicitor, I would ask you if you could give us some insight as to what those items are, please.
Thanks, Mayor. You're right. The items for consideration at an executive session are primarily personnel items, collective bargaining issues, matters involving real estate, the acquisition of real estate, matters that are otherwise confidential, and you're allowed to discuss things that are informational only, where there's no deliberation, where, say, Scott wants to inform the board of certain things that are going on. That's not in the Sunshine Law, but the courts have indicated that you're allowed to meet on informational items where you're not deliberating. But personnel, contractual, collective bargaining, the acquisition of real estate and legal issues where there's threatened or actual litigation.
Let me ask you something, Craig. How are you going to get the consensus? Everywhere you read in the charter, it says with the consent of council. Where are you going to get the consent of council if you don't discuss this?
You have to discuss it in public.
Okay, then we'll discuss it in public. We'll discuss it in public whether we want to go back to a meeting in September in a personal meeting, And we can do it right now?
That's not on,
Craig?
that's not on the agenda right now. I don't believe it's appropriate to discuss that, to vote on that right now. That's not an agenda item. The deputy mayor simply said that she wanted to add executive sessions. I simply said I want to add public sessions. I think the public is entitled to hear our deliberations. We cannot just deliberate behind closed doors. They should hear our deliberations and they should get to have input. I don't believe it's appropriate to vote on that right now.
Right.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes, Deputy Mayor Stem.
I just want to clarify something. Yes, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I believe that we should have those 2 meetings a month. But what I was saying is that we do need to, and thank you so much, Solicitor, for clarifying that. And that's exactly what I was saying. On those issues, we should have an executive session once a month, especially since COVID, and we really can't come together other than coming together through Zoom or GoTo meetings, which we see is very difficult to do. So I think that we should have an executive session, and I do agree with you with having a informational session for the public and then a council meeting. So yes, 2 council meetings, but we do need to have executive session.
I have a
Thank you,
question, Mayor. Is this leading to asking for a revote on the issue of the contract with the police chief? Is this what this discussion is about?
I brought this discussion up because I think that the public needs to have more input. I think that you and I, as you said earlier in the meeting, I don't think the public has sufficient information or sufficient opportunity. Did not intend to discuss the chief's contract tonight, but I do think that we should ask the chief if he would be willing to go back to the prior contract and then put the terms of his contract out there in the public, because to me, the contract that the chief has received is really just frankly outrageous. And I don't know whether council will want to revisit that or not. I think that we should give the chief the opportunity to make the decision whether or not he wants to voluntarily revisit that. But this was brought up simply because I genuinely believe that we need to give the public the opportunity to witness our deliberations and to participate in them. I just think that one of the things that really sparked it for me was, I think that had the public really known about the terms of the contract, I think there would have been public outrage, and that opportunity was never given. In fact, we did have an executive session, if you recall. And in fact, Councilman Petrucci asked me if he would be permitted to, without getting into the weeds, he asked me if he would be permitted to make a motion to table. And then everything happened so quickly. So I do think the public needs to have a greater participation.
May I suggest that no matter what you do, you're going to have an opposition. If you have a contract, some will agree and some not. The vote was taken. The public, some were there, some were not, I'm sure, but the vote was taken. And I don't think we should revisit this on the basis of you thinking it was an outrageous procedure, because you were part of it and we all followed the format and we voted as we saw fit.
And thank you for your input. My purpose tonight was to say that we need to have another public meeting.
Another public meeting, I agree with that, but I don't know about revisiting the chief's contract.
Frankly, I never used that term. That was your term, sir. So, you know, if that.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Okay.
About
Yes.
my term.
Revisiting the contract. So I'm not here.
Yeah, I asked if this is what it was driving to do. Is this what you are trying to accomplish? Or is this?
What I'm trying to accomplish is to let the public see more of what's happening. I don't think we need to have closed door sessions. I think we should limit closed door sessions to the very specific terms that are outlined in the Sunshine Act. Other than that, I think our deliberations should be done publicly. And I think the public should be given the opportunity to hear the information and then have input. I think we need public comment on these issues. I think that, certainly just because we were elected, it doesn't mean we know everything. I think that the public often has very good comments, very good suggestions, and they have items that they have things for us to consider that we may not have even considered. So I welcome public comment, and what I'm getting at is I think we need a second public meeting.
I agree with having two meetings, essentially two council meetings, correct? And one council meeting would allow the public to discuss in more depth some of the issues that come before it. Is that correct?
That's exactly what I'm.
All right, I think you're right on that point.
So it would be a
Thank you very much.
workshop. Jim, it
Any
would
other-
be a workshop meeting.
Well, you can
Workshop.
workshop, whatever you want to call it, but I think the public should have the opportunity to discuss more, ask more questions, and have more input at a second meeting.
Who would have thought he would have said that?
Pardon me? Was that a facetious comment?
Any other items for consideration?
Excuse me, but just before we move on, if it is a desire of council to have a second meeting every month, when would you like to do it? Because of the advertising requirements.
I think that's premature to decide that tonight. I think that members of council didn't realize that I was going to bring this up. So I would not want anybody to make a commitment tonight.
So when are we supposed to talk?
Mayor,
Mayor, when are we supposed to talk
Yes,
about it?
Deputy Mayor. Yes, Deputy Mayor Sapp.
Mayor Calabrese, with all due respect, I'd like to suggest that we consider just moving the meetings back to what we used to have. I believe it was the first and third, or second and fourth Mondays. We need to just go back to the Mondays that they were originally scheduled for, and then that way, nothing's missing, nothing's broken.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
When are we going to discuss when these meetings are? And
I think the Deputy Mayor just had a very good suggestion.
I understand her suggestion, but when Scott asked a question, you said it was premature to bring it up right now. So when are we going to discuss it if it's premature now?
Well, after that, then the Deputy Mayor made a suggestion, and we're in the middle of the discussion. So I like her idea.
So you want to vote on it now?
No, I think that we need to talk with the solicitor and the manager about that. If you think that's appropriate for us to vote on that now, then by all means we can do that. But otherwise, I don't even know that it necessarily needs to be a formal vote. It may just need to be a consensus. So I'll defer to the manager and the solicitor if you have any input.
I would just, I would say that obviously council can have as many meetings as it likes. I think the charter obligates you to at least meet monthly. I would just be seeking some guidance on what the nature of the second meeting is. If it's going to be exactly the same kind of format we do now, only a second time, that's one thing. If it's something else where it's going to be a town hall format, or we introduce the items at the first meeting and then you vote on them at the second, I think those are kind of the mechanics I would be wanting to understand, just because we have to put the agenda together.
Right, and I also think we need to figure out where we're headed. How long will we be staying remotely? How long will we be doing remote meetings? You know, it may be too soon to go back in September to in-person meetings.
Most definitely, it's going to be too soon. You're lucky if you get here for January 1st.
Mayor Calabrese, may I make another suggestion? I'd like to suggest that just as we did the last town hall meeting, so residents who would like to speak and would like to address issues or make comment, they can request to be heard so that it will be done in a decent and orderly fashion, because obviously doing it remotely, every resident who wishes to come to meeting can't get on or speak. It would just be chaotic. So just the way we did the last town hall meeting, I think that was very well organized. And until we are able to go back into council's chamber, I think we should just do it that way. And we can then revisit this at a later date once we see what DC says.
Right, I think we need to, I agree with you, Deputy Mayor Sapp. I think we need to get the wrinkles ironed out, and then we can move forward from there. Any other items?
Absolutely, and I believe you just need a consensus, and you can do that later, but it just needs to have a consensus done.
That's my understanding too. Is that your understanding, Manager? We need a consensus, not a formal vote?
That is correct. You know, it's really up to the mayor and council how often they meet. I would just need, I at this point, just so I'm clear on it, I'm not going to advertise a second meeting at this time. That would be the only requirement, is to advertise it. At the beginning of the year, typically I introduce a calendar that is voted on for approval. So that's really the only formal vote. But if council and mayor want to add a meeting, I would just need to know when those are, so we advertise those.
If I could just speak to that as well. I mean, mayor and council did vote to eliminate the first meeting of the month. And you know, if you're not spending money, it can be anything. But I think technically, because it's going to require another advertisement, you probably ought to vote on what you're going to do. It just makes it more transparent. You'll probably do it as a consensus, but as we talked earlier, mayors, it's not an executive session topic. So you're going to have to hash it out in public anyway, whether it be tonight or next month. It would be great maybe if Scott would get everybody's opinion on how they want a second meeting, or if they want a second meeting, and how they want it to transpire. I know other communities, sometimes it's a workshop. Sometimes some communities have what's called a citizens night, which sort of sounds like where we're going, is where we want the citizens more involved and to be able to talk on whatever they want to talk about. But those are the wrinkles that need to be ironed out, and somehow we have to figure that out. And if we're not going to have a public discussion, then Scott's going to have to get the opinions of everybody and present them to council, and then we can take it from there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, solicitor, but it would be basically approval of the calendar. That would be, I would come back to council with a calendar and say, here, I've added on the second meeting, and I would seek their approval at that point. So that would be the vote, I would think.
Okay, so maybe between now and the next meeting in September, we can and then take it to a vote in September. Any other items for consideration?
I have a procedural question here. I have a couple of items I would like to bring up, just as to bring up what I'm going to want to discuss in future meetings, not this evening, but I just want to say, let's prepare you and for what I want to bring up. So do I do it now under items for consideration or mayor and council reports? Everybody looks puzzled.
I think it would be under items of consideration, but I'll defer to the solicitor and the manager.
I'm not certain what.
I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not certain what you're bringing up, Jim. If you're looking for formal action in the future, it would probably be under items for consideration.
All right. Well, I'll go through it. All right. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. First of all, I'd like to ask Emily a question that it went too fast earlier on. I missed asking this question, and I'd like to ask her if she is looking for one letter from council with all signatures or individual letters from council persons. Do you hear the question, Emily?
Yeah, sorry, I was having a hard time getting into unmute. That's honestly, that is open to council. If more collectively would be nice, a letter with all of those who support. But that I think is where it would be considered whether this item to be voted upon or not, or if it will be individually based support. The boroughs and municipalities that I did mention have done collective letters where we all signed it, but however Penn Hill sees fit, the ALT would accept.
Okay, thank you. Here's a number of items I would like to bring up in the future. I'm not asking for any discussion tonight, just to call it to your attention, anticipate what I'm going to be asking and think about how we can discuss it. First of all, I think we ought to form a housing committee. We had an economic development committee. We're facing a problem with this pandemic about housing. And my idea is to have a housing committee to develop a plan to see how we can offset some of the effects of the pandemic. And so think about that one. The other thing is, a couple of weeks ago, I sent out a email to council persons talking about developer incentives to bring developers to this area. John Petrucci responded. I didn't get a response from others. And in the future, I'd like to know what you thought of that memo and whether it's worth pursuing. Noise ordinance. There was a lot of noise about the noise ordinance this past July, and I would like to bring up the fact that we have an ordinance that apparently we can't enforce, and I think this is a disservice to the community. And I would like to discuss this to see if we intend to find a way to get the noise ordinance in effect, or just drop the thing and not have a catch-22 issue here. I had on my agenda the town hall meeting, and this has been discussed. I think the budget meetings in the past have been not well run, and I don't think the public had an opportunity to discuss the budget meetings. So I think we should have, I'm asking the residents to come to the general meetings and look at the budget and ask questions about the budget, and that the people at the budget meetings have more of an opportunity rather than be told you have 1 minute to ask one question. I think it was unfair. And I think we should think about amending the home rule charter to increase council from 5 to 7 members and have more diversity from the community in terms of who's on council. And I have an issue. Scott and I have been talking about this. I asked earlier on if I could see the right to know questions that have been asked by the residents. And I found out there's a format that they follow. And my issue is this, and I address this to council. I don't think any official in any level of government works without oversight. So I would like to know, is there any objection to my seeing these right to know requests as they come in before they're processed? Or does the councilman, as the right to know officer, have the right to tell me I cannot see the incoming mail, I can only see the outgoing mail, and there's no oversight on that issue? So do you understand my question, Craig?
I do.
Okay, so I'm not asking for a decision tonight, but I would like one next meeting. Okay?
Absolutely.
I do want to speak to that, Mr. Getzey, because you're saying there's no oversight, and there absolutely is. It's the Office of Open Records. What we typically do is follow the right to know law, and we do have an adopted policy. Any right to know request that I get in, I process it as a right to know officer. I don't share it with council. I don't show it to the mayor and ask her what she thinks of it or what council thinks of it or how to process it, because they're not the right to know officer, I am. So whenever we get a request, we process that request, we give it an answer, and then council then gets in their packet every week, if there is activity, you get the actual request that came in along with the answer that it was given. So you absolutely do see all of the requests that come in. It's just that they don't go to you first because you're not the right to know officer. And I think that the reason that that is done that way, and probably every municipality and public entity is to maintain a level of neutrality so as there's no interference with that very important process. I think that's part of it, is that the public needs to have trust that when they submit a right to know request, that it gets dealt with in the right way. It isn't given to someone on council first before it's even looked at by the right to know officer. I think that's the reason the law is set up that way, Councilman.
I don't know. I've looked at this and I don't see any specifics that I could find saying how it should be run. As an elected official, I feel that I have a right to see whatever comes into this office. And I don't know that the right to know officer has the authority to tell me I cannot see that. I'm an elected official. I was elected by the people to see how this community is being run. I would like to know more about that. You keep referring me to the process. I want to see what people are asking.
Jim, then you have to avail yourself and come to my office for me to show you. I think that's probably going to be the most helpful thing. Whenever, and again, you're saying that you don't get to see the request, and that's not true. And I really would like you to stop saying that, because it's not true. Whenever we get a right to know request, however it may come by letter, it may come by email, it may be a fax, we get a lot of those, it may be a standard right to know form. All of those are processed, and then you see the response that the municipality gave along with the original request. And the reason for that is to have a streamlined process. I don't know that it's a good idea to take every public records request that we get and to show them to council first before we do anything with it. And I also think it's unfair to the public to do that too, Jim, Councilman, because under the right to know law, the time limit doesn't start to accrue until the right to know officer actually gets the request. So by having the right to know officer get the requests, that's why there's a right to know officer. The right to know officer's job is to receive right to know requests. That's why they're appointed. And that process, it doesn't start until he actually gets it. Unless I get the request, the requesting member of the public doesn't have the benefit of the right to know law. And I know that you might not quite follow exactly what I'm saying on that, but and the solicitor could corroborate it. The right to know officer, when he gets that request, there's a 5-day period under which it has to have an answer. But it only starts to tick when he actually gets the request. If you get the request, or if Councilman Petrucci gets the request, or if the mayor gets the request, or if anyone else gets the request, those 5 days don't start counting. So it's actually going to be detrimental to the public getting the information that they want. So there's full transparency in that process. You see not only the answer that I give, you also see the request itself. And built into that process, I would add, is the fact that anyone can go to the Office of Open Records if they feel that they weren't given responsive documents that they requested.
Solicitor Alexander, I want to simplify this. As an elected official, do I have the right to ask and the right to see the right to know request by a citizen before it goes into the process? And if you can give me a reference that says I can't, or a reference that says I can, I would appreciate that. That's the simple question I'm asking. Do I have the right to see it before it's processed?
If I could just add one thing, if that's the case, I would ask for the mayor and council to amend the right to know policy that's in place, if that's going to be the new policy, because that's contrary to the adopted policy of Penn Hills.
Well,
I think it might be a good idea. I think it might be a good idea, Mr. Getze, if you would sit down with the manager and he can go through the process, and perhaps the solicitor can show you the act and the policy. And then if you have questions after that, then we can revisit them. But we keep coming back to this issue. I think you need to actually sit down and take a look at the actual language.
I've read the act. I think I know what it is. The manager has shown me the process. And what I'm saying is, do I have the right to look at that request when it comes in before it goes into the process? Do I have that right? It's yes or no. I have the right or I don't. And the rest of the process and everything would follow up.
I will respond to that. I'll
All
talk to
right, thank you. Thank you.
Respond to that.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I've covered So I will be asking these questions in future, maybe at the next meeting. And if anybody has any questions of what I proposed here, you can get to me however you feel is appropriate. And also on the, well, that's it until next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other council members have any other items for consideration?
Madam Mayor, I'm going to suggest this now since we're doing things a little bit different than we've done them before. There was a RFP for William McKinley that was supposed to go out. And I believe we should let the manager put the RFP out for William McKinley. It's an opportunity to explore what's out there that's better than we have. It's been the first time for this community that we ever collected rent on that building at William McKinley. Between the two centers, McKinley and Lincoln Park Multipurpose Center, the municipality could collect $60,000 per year. This would offset the expense of cutting grass and snow removal of these facilities. Bringing in revenue at this time is a good thing. So I think we should get out there and get that RFP going, just like we did with the Lincoln Park Center, and see what we got. And then we can always make a decision and vote on something later.
Any other items for consideration? Any reports from council? I have a report. I am very, very, very proud to say that I'd like to thank Kathy Rayborn. I believe she is on this call. I don't see her now, but I had the distinct pleasure of attending the Penn Hills Shade Tree Commission's Tree and Pizza Party and the Penn Hills Community Park in the beginning of August. It was really quite beautiful. I'm so proud that we have been designated as a Tree City USA. It was a really, really great turnout. If you have the opportunity, I think you should go down to the park and take a look at what's been done there. It's not something that can be described in words. You have to just go down and experience it. It's so beautiful, the work that they have done down there. Last month, we voted to expand the Shade Tree Commission, and I nominated, I asked some individuals if they would be willing to serve, and they said they would. Typically, though, what we do is we publicly acknowledge them. We did not do that at this meeting because we were thinking possibly we could go to an in-person meeting next month. I don't think that's going to happen now. So we will actually formally appoint them in public. Ideally, I hope we can get that on the agenda for next month. But it is really awesome to be to see the work the Shade Tree Commission is doing. And there was a tremendous party, a tremendous turnout. And I think you should go to the park and see the work that they have done. May I get a motion for an adjournment?
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Thank you. May I get a second?
I second the
Second.
motion.
A voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you so much,
Aye.
everyone. See you next month.